our sitting mayor embroiled in a web of corruption.
What do you think about Mayor Adams? Any thoughts?
I think he is not the best mayor.
He's embattled in a mess, I think.
It's pissing me the fuck off.
I think part of me says that he was being railroaded because of those charges of the Turkish taking stuff from Turkey. I think he's way failing.
A former governor who resigned in disgrace, seeking his post.
I'm not following Andrew Cuomo. He can get the fuck out.
I know Andrew Cuomo's running. And yeah, I don't want him as mayor.
Not incredibly pleased with all of the selections that we have, but unfortunately, or fortunately, I might have to go with Cuomo, but I'm not sure.
And a public torn between the promise of an incumbent willing to fight against a pervasive national authority or hoping for the unstained reputation of a new face.
I don't believe that you're gonna have a certain amount of power that's going to just affect everything so perfectly and defeat. Okay, so you'll defeat this guy, who you're trying to defeat now. But then what happens?
We're not getting people that are honest and who actually want to serve and protect their community.
So you may have heard of the chaos going on in our New York City government right now, and you might be thinking, how can I get involved? I went and spoke to a bunch of the most powerful New York City political groups to figure out how any regular old person can get involved and make a difference in our government. Here's how.
It all starts with the 2025 municipal elections. Now, I'm not here to tell you who to vote for, but more so, why you should. New York City is number one for pizza, entertainment, opportunity, basketball, but ranks number 49 for voter turnout in cities across the country. Let's begin by breaking down what this race actually is.
It's not just for mayor. This year, New York City is voting for comptroller, city council, public advocate, and some district attorney races.
And these seats hold just as much importance. When the city charter was created in 1898 to unify the 5 boroughs under one central government, it awarded the mayor a disproportionate amount of authority. In fact, the New York City mayor is considered one of the most powerful executive municipal seats in the country. Gosh, say that 10 times fast. Because of this, it's not only important who is selected for mayor, but also the seats that balance their authority. The city council is the legislative body who make the laws of the city. The comptroller is considered the mayor's watchdog, and they audit city agencies. And the public advocate represents constituent complaints, and is next in the line of succession for mayor if something were to happen.
So let's talk about the candidates.
There's a laundry list of candidates running for mayor, but some you may have heard of are former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, Assembly Member Zohran Mamdani, current Comptroller Brad Lander, State Senators Elnor Myrie, Speaker of the City Council Adrian Adams, and of course, our current Mayor, Eric Adams, who's running as an independent. For Comptroller, we have 2 main candidates, Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine and City Council Member Justin Brannan. Public Advocate, there's people like Jamal Williams, who currently holds the seat, and Assemblywoman Jennifer Rajkumar. In City Council, there's too many to name, but to list a few of the tight races to watch, there's District 38, a pretty swing district in South Brooklyn between progressive Alexa Aviles and moderate Ling Yi, and Manhattan District 2 with a bunch of political folks fighting for the open seat, like Assemblymember Harvey Epstein and convicted sex offender Anthony Weiner. The optics of the names in that race are really something.
So how does voting work?
The general election is on November 4th, 2025. But what some might be missing is that the real race happens this month in the June primary.
New York City elects a mayor through a closed primary, meaning on June 24th, Democrats will come out to rank their top choices for mayor, comptroller, city council, etc. They use ranked choice to do this, which is a pretty interesting system.
Instead of a typical ballot with a list of candidates and voters select one for each seat, ranked choice allows you to list up to 5 candidates in order of preference. So, for example, for mayor, you can rank 1, Adrian Adams, let's just say, 2, Brad Lander, and 3, Zelnor Myrie, for sake of example. If a candidate receives more than 50% of the top vote, then they win. If not, then it goes to number 2, if not, number 3, etc. It's sort of like an algorithmic style of voting, and it's designed to be more inclusionary as well, because voters can show their preference for multiple candidates, and it gives the opportunity for smaller candidates to be recognized. But what's not necessarily inclusive is the way the closed primary is used to decide this. Basically, only registered Democrats can vote in this race, and only a fraction will. It's projected that out of 6 million registered Dems throughout the city, only about 1 million will vote in the primary.
Turnout in New York City races is unfortunately always really low, particularly in these Democratic primaries where if you're not a registered Democrat, if you're a registered independent, for example, you're not allowed to vote in these races. Additionally, it's happening, in an off year. There's not really a lot else going on right now, so that also harms turnout. In 2021, I believe about a third of the registered Democrats in New York voted in that race. I think it was just south of 1 million voters. In a city of like 8.5 million people. So, if you think about how many Democrats are turning out, it's about a third. If you think about that as a percentage of total city population, 15% maybe.
So, a sixth of the city's population is deciding who the next power-wielding mayor will be for the whole city. In fact, this is widely considered a big part of why Adams won the race in 2021. Really, it's because whoever wins the primary in June will be the one Democratic candidate appearing on the ticket for the general election in November. But in a city where the Democratic candidate will most likely win in November against the one Republican running with pretty dubious prospects, and Mayor Adams, who's running as an independent, that means whoever wins the ranked choice Democratic primary in June will most likely become our next mayor. And in a recent development, Cuomo kind of hacked the system and will be running in the Democratic primary in June and as an independent candidate in November, duplicating his possibility of coming out on top. I noticed a gap with average voters understanding this process.
So, do you know when the primary is?
I don't.
Do you plan on voting?
Yes, I do.
Do you know when the primary is?
No, not exactly.
Do you know when the primary is? The Democratic primary?
No.
No. You guys know about the Democratic primary? For them?
I know it's happening, but I do not know what day it is.
Do you plan on voting in the primary?
Yes.
You know when it is?
I actually don't know when that is.
That's because the people showing up for the primary, who are in the know, are usually more educated, active members of the Democratic Party. I wasn't even aware of this myself when I first registered in New York last November as unaffiliated with any party. And once I realized what the primary was, I called the Board of Elections to find out the deadline to change my registration and found out I'd missed it. I spoke with a Board of Elections employee who wasn't willing to go on record, but told me this is a common problem they incur, and she wishes there was more education citywide about the primary process and how to participate. I went to a meeting with the Commission to Strengthen Local Democracy, a new initiative to amend the city charter, and they touched on this point.
We think the most important element here is to open up the primary system. And yes, as you mentioned, Alaska has this really interesting model, but some elements of that of a system that would allow more people to vote is what we're looking at.
They want to open the primary process to include the around 1 million independent voters in New York City who are very much politically engaged, and move the municipal races to an even year to increase turnout. Because all in all, The primary process is a pretty exclusive thing and leads to the more powerful partisan Democrats in New York deciding who's mayor for the whole city.
And so, with a select group of voters to appeal to for the primary, how do campaigns work?
These local races are pretty effective at vying for the hearts of party insiders. One thing they do is hold house parties, which are invitation only, and they'll speak about New York City issues over wine and cheese. They also have forums. These are generally more open to the public, and they're usually hosted by political organizations like the ACLU, and candidates are asked questions by a moderator and sometimes audience members.
When it's convenient for our systems and governments to use Black artists' work for their military, economic, or political goals, they praise it.
Candidates also go through the petition signing process. All of them have a minimum threshold of signatures to obtain in order to be put on the ballot. And once again, you have to be a registered Democrat to sign or oversee petition signatures. And then there's fundraising. Municipal candidates have fundraising quotas set by the city in order to be considered. So, for example, a mayoral candidate must raise at least $250,000 from at least 1,000 different contributors. Some folks running feel this gives an unfair advantage to incumbent candidates who have an existing network of donors. Like at a comptroller forum I attended where this guy Ishmael, who's never run for public office, was protesting that he couldn't participate in the debate because he didn't raise enough funds.
We're going to continue the debate. Thank you. We're going to, sir, please. Excuse us. We're going to continue the debate. All right, we're going to move on. We hope you can stay in the debate.
As my co-host, co-sponsor said, we did have a set of criteria we set up, and anybody who was eligible, meeting those criteria, we invited. We're very glad to have the candidate here, and we will continue the conversation. Thank you very much.
Sir, we're going to ask you to leave if you continue.
And here's the juicy part. The New York City Campaign Finance Board has a matching funds program. So basically, for every dollar given to a candidate, the city will match with $8.
So New York City has a robust system of publicly financing local campaigns. I'll give a little bit about the purpose of this system, and then I'll talk about how it works structurally. So the system serves a couple purposes. One, it helps limit the power of large donors. So if you run for president, it's often easier just to go to millionaires and billionaires and fundraise from them. New York's matching fund system encourages people to raise money from grassroots donors. Additionally, the Supreme Court has eliminated expenditure caps on a lot of races throughout the country. Yeah. And if you opt into New York's public financing system, you are placed under a spending cap. So it helps raise the floor for how much people are raising, and it creates a ceiling so that one person can't just spend way more than every other candidate in the race.
I pulled 11 crumpled dollars out of my wallet to give to Zelnor Myrie at one of his events, and the city matched it times 8. So he received a $99 donation from yours truly.
Yeah, they really should have checked out my background before they took my donation. I'm kidding. Okay, continue. I'm kidding.
This program incentivizes smaller candidates to fundraise with individuals across the city instead of big donors. But it also means if you have a wealthier network of fundraisers, especially if you're already holding public office, you have an exponential financial advantage from what the city is matching. I was curious about what the average person thinks of their tax dollars going to fund these local candidates, some of whom they haven't even heard of, for a race many are unfamiliar with.
Do you know how matching funds work?
I don't. No.
Do you know how matching funds work for the campaigns here?
I know the term, but I don't actually know how it works in this instance.
Yeah.
By and large, the public is not aware of this program. With that said, the public's also not aware of a lot of things that happen in city government and city policy. And the benefit of this program is that it allows campaigns to go to the public and inform them about their decisions when they go and vote for mayor and city council. So really this serves as in many ways, a public education program allowing the public to make informed decisions about who they want to vote for mayor. And absent this program, we would be in a situation where a smaller number of candidates who are often supported by very wealthy business interests would be at an unfair advantage for getting their message out.
But even with the democratized giving from the matching funds program, don't be deceived. There's still a lot of big money in these local races, especially with super PACs who have basically no financial limits on donations. A great example of how this money is covertly pulling strings behind the scenes is the pro-Cuomo super PAC Fix the City, who just raised upwards of $10 million, a record number of funds for a New York City mayor's race, and it even got him in trouble with the Campaign Finance Board for allegations that his campaign and the PAC were coordinating, which is technically against the rules, but it's a very fine line, and kind of impossible to monitor when the use of these funds have next to no regulations. There's also the anti-Cuomo super PAC, like New Yorkers for Lower Costs, who support Zohran Mamdani and have raised around $650,000. And there's even a PAC called Dream, Don't Rank Evil Andrew for Mayor. Between dark-moneyed super PACs collecting millions from wealthy companies and our city's tax dollars microfinancing every single campaign, it opens the question of what's more ethical. Should we leave it to big-moneyed corporations to fund local campaigns, or rely on the strength of individual donors to fuel success? In both cases, it leads us to the age-old problem in politics. The more money, the more influence. And with a greater buy-in from our public tax dollars, you can't help but wonder why there isn't greater participation in this race.
And they can't be bothered to stand up for Brooklyn or anywhere in New York State or anywhere in this country. Shame.
How about getting the word out to regular voters? The final part of the campaign process is the fun one, pitching your candidate.
And how's this usually done? Well, most is through political organizations with a strong presence in New York City, like unions and political clubs. In fact, a huge part of this race is winning the hearts of powerful city coalitions, especially for party insiders where region can be the distinguishing factor for who they support. For example, in the race for comptroller, Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine has won the support of most Manhattan clubs and representatives, and Brooklyn City Councilman Justin Brannan has the allegiance of the Brooklynites. Meaning, when it comes to pretty indistinguishable Democratic candidates, what you support becomes a little less important than who supports you. But who are these powerful political clubs, and how could an everyday person get involved? Already, upon scoping out the different clubs, there appears to be some barriers of entry with either selective paid membership or, for some, no contact information at all. I sat down with leaders of some of the top political groups in New York to get the inside scoop.
My name is Chance Campbell. I'm the president of the Independent Neighborhood Democrats. We are the Reform Democratic Club for the 52nd Assembly District. We've been going strong since 1970. We are founded by a bunch of reform-minded Democrats who are opposed to the party machine, and especially their lack of care about trying to end the Vietnam War. Since then, we have been running candidates for public and party office that are always reform-minded, trying to fix various parts of government and the party machine. So the line that we love to use is, we want judges that know the law but aren't somebody's brother-in-law.
So I'm here with the infamous president of the Brooklyn Young Dems, Carlos. Please introduce yourself.
I think that was a great introduction.
Come on.
Well, I'm Carlos Calzadilla Palacio, the president of Brooklyn Young Democrats. And we're in a crisis, and we are organizing young people across this borough to take action, to get involved, and to fight back.
as a minority group in a Democrat-led city, you know, these other political clubs outnumber you like 20 to 1, I would imagine. How does that change your approach to organizing?
So it's a lot of work. It's you know, and again, as I mentioned earlier, it's, you know, really getting people involved to learn the process, you know, participating in the democratic process, going out there, getting someone that you believe in that might align with your values, signatures to have their name on a petition, getting involved in your local county committee, going out and knocking on doors and educating people that might align with you, really continuing to build that bench, which is what our club hopes to do. Again, we have that title, SIYRs, but the next generation of leaders, you know, maybe you could come to our club and you don't align with our thoughts or policies on certain stances, but you go out and get involved from there into your life. That's productive.
And they all have a similar methodology. Each club has its own unique voting process to determine who they'll endorse. And once decided, they'll provide manpower for that candidate by going out to petition and canvass prospective voters. It feeds into the idea that some of these races are kind of a citywide popularity contest, because having the support of these clubs means not only the vote of their members, but an investment of resources and labor for your candidate. So winning a club's favorability amidst low turnout and voter awareness could make or break the race.
Right now, like, we just finished our endorsement process. We voted to endorse Brad Lander for mayor, Jamani Williams for public advocate, Justin Brennan for city comptroller.
How much do you think it has an impact on the local races?
I think it actually has quite a bit of impact. Not because it's a paper endorsement, but because the major clubs in Brooklyn are actual boots on the ground. They are the ones who are going to get signatures to get you on the ballot, and concurrent to that, they'll be handing out your literature and telling people, here's why you should vote for so-and-so.
One of the lessons from the loss that we had in November is that the Democratic brand needs to be rebuilt. And we lost the average person, we lost young people because we became a party of insiders. We became a party of people that just were not seen as cool.
These clubs are often social, community-based, and a great way for people to get involved, but not always accessible. It's a shame that these powerful coalitions have a sort of monopoly on civic engagement, and we should assess how to make these clubs more open and attractive to everyday people. This would not only strengthen the democratic process, but enhance overall education and participation in local politics.
Obviously, some clubs have a regional focus or a certain ideological bent, but as long as you meet those requirements, on paper it's very, very easy just to get involved and show up. But that does require, obviously, knowing that the club exists and knowing that this is an opportunity. I think there's tons of young people in Brooklyn, for example, who would love to, be able to help influence who our elected representatives are. But if you were to compare membership in Brooklyn Young Democrats, for example, maybe there's 100 members on, in various forms on the roster, to how many young Democrats there are in Brooklyn, you're talking in the hundreds of thousands. So sometimes people don't get involved in these groups because they don't realize they exist and there's an opportunity.
Do you know about like ranked choice, all that kind of stuff? Okay, right on. Do you have any candidates in mind that you're into?
Yeah, I'm signed up to canvass for Zoran, so he's kind of my front runner.
Do you know how matching funds work? Yeah? Okay, you guys are good. A lot of people who I speak to, this is like pretty unfamiliar to them. What do you think are some of the barriers for young people getting involved in something?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think one of the main barriers for young people particularly is that voting is not a thing we are encouraged to do as much as we should be, and the information about how it works and how to do it is something you have to seek out. Because we get flyers in the mail and stuff like that, but it's very limited the degree to which there's outreach and engagement from the city.
And if we're going to win young people back. We have to focus on issues that people care about, but also reaching young people who might not be involved in politics, might not work in politics, but that care. In order to do that, we have to make things less intimidating and lower the barrier of entry to actually increase participation from young people that care, but their first political action might not be some meeting with people that they don't know, filled with politicians they don't know, and feel intimidated, and with people that without anyone that they know going there. So we have to lower the barrier of entry and reach young people where they are.
What's something you want to see in our leadership take care of, especially for young people?
I like to see like more young voices, like being spoken. Like I see a lot of older people spoken, but not a lot of young people. And I feel like our voices are important too, because like, yeah, I don't really know how to explain it, but like, you know how like when millennials were like getting jobs and like the economy was crashing, like the same thing's happening to us. So I feel like it's important for us to have a voice, like, you know, because we're becoming the new adults. We're gonna end up in those positions that like older people are in now. So like, I feel like it's important for us to have a voice to speak out.
Can't speak for any of the other clubs, but with IND, like after our meetings, a bunch of us usually go out for drinks because that way also we can also try to create a real friendship and community there within our own right. Just over just about 4 weeks ago, my father passed away.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
He was 92, had heart problems, developed dementia. It was fun. Yeah, but it's a bunch of different feelings at once. And I'm fine. I lost count on how many members from IND actually showed up to my father's funeral, or at least for the visiting hours. My club sent flowers, and while my mother and other members of the family were going to the internment, several members stayed back at the place where we were having lunch, along with some family friends. We come back, and one of my mom's best friends from college has her husband saying to my mom, you know, did you know that this person's a judge, and this person is in Professor Fordham, and this person has done this and this, and these are all IND members in one capacity or another, or previously a member. It shows that they really, we do so many great things in the club, but also in our communities.
So now that we know how these municipal races work, who's really deciding the race for mayor? The voting public, party insiders, wealthy individual donors, or corporate bought super PACs?
All in all, civic engagement is the medicine and a cornerstone of our democracy. Getting involved locally is the most direct way to make an impact in the world around you. With the city's increasing costs, lack of affordable housing, and ongoing political scandals, it all starts here, with us. And we can use the power of our voices to take back control of our ever-chaotic and ever-evolving city.
Don't vote for Eric Adams.
And Wavy, who are you voting for? Are you gonna vote?
For dog candidate.